Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Tiffany. This character study is going to come to you from the wizarding world of Harry Potter. I'll be talking about the character that I think is simply the most compelling character in the entire wizarding world universe, and that is Remus Lupin. Remus Lupin is simply a top tier character for me. He's not at the top of most popular Harry Potter characters. He's usually down a ways, maybe middle, maybe lower. And I think part of that problem is because the movies don't give his character the credit that he gets in the books. So this character study will be based off the books. There will be major spoilers, just warning you. Before we get into it, shout out to Samantha. Thank you for making me feel supported and like my videos matter to somebody. Thank you. There are two things that I think make him such a top tier character for me. The first one being his strength of character in everything that he has to overcome in his life, including the things about himself that he has to overcome and fight through and push through for basically his entire life. The second thing that I think makes him such a good character is the way he treats other people. Every interaction he has with others all throughout the books shows how he views other people, which is everyone deserves kindness. Whether they deserve it or not, he chooses to be kind to them anyway. And that can be really hard. Remus Lupin is literally a monster. In the Muggle world, he would be considered mythical, but in the wizarding world, he's a very real and dangerous threat to them in their minds. The wizarding world is pretty prejudiced, for good cause. Werewolves traditionally go and attack people. Remus Lupin does his best to not fit into everyone's idea of a werewolf, but for most of his life, there's not a lot he can do about that. And everything in his life, every choice that he makes, every interaction he has with other wizards and witches revolves around this thing about himself that he can't change. Remus was bitten before he was 5 years old. So pretty much his entire life, he's had to struggle with this thing about himself. He would not have been able to go to Hogwarts if it had not been for Dumbledore, who stepped in and was on his side and made a way for him to be able to go. And Remus does not want to disappoint Dumbledore, even into adulthood. He does things and makes choices that a character like him wouldn't normally make because he doesn't want to disappoint Dumbledore. When Remus Lupin does go to Hogwarts, he unexpectedly makes friends. In fact, he makes the best friends of his life. He knows he's a monster. He doesn't think anyone will want to be his friend in the first place. And he fears that if they were to find out the truth about him, they will not want to be his friend anymore. So he hides a huge part of himself. Or at least he tries to. It's kind of hard to hide that you're a werewolf. Now, we know from reading the books or even watching the movies that his friends are far better than he thinks. They do not leave him when they find out what he is. And I don't think he really doubted his friends and how good of friends they were. I think what he doubted was himself and his worthiness to have friends in the first place. Now we know that Remus's friends do find out that he's a werewolf. He couldn't hide it from them. It was going to happen. We've seen memories of James and Sirius, and we know what troublemakers they were and how Peter followed everything they did. They were able to figure this out. And their finding out about Remus leads to one of the first big pivotal moments of his life. These are the first really good friends he's made, and he has to go through them finding out what he is. Here's where Remus's view of himself really gets in his way. So his friends have found out the truth about him, the real, actual truth that he knows is true, they know it's true, he is a werewolf. Remus thinks this means they've also found out the second truth about him, his own perceived truth, the way he views himself, which is, I am a monster, I am not friend material. In Remus's mind, these two truths are so connected, he can't separate them. I am a werewolf, so that means people can't be my friend. His friends, out of love, because they care about him, try their best to destroy his self-image. Yes, he is a werewolf, but he is also friend material. So Remus's friends, Sirius, James, and Peter, think of something that they could do for Remus to solidify that bond of friendship with him, something that only Remus would need. And here's the thing, Remus cannot ever change the fact that he is a werewolf. That is part of him. There is no cure. He can never fully be part of the normal wizarding world. He will never be a normal wizard, a normal man. He is what he is. He can't change it. So his friends do the one thing they can think of that will most closely allow them to join him in his world. If he can't come to them, they will come to him by becoming animagi. Now this is highly dangerous, highly illegal, but if you've read the books, you know these guys, you know that that's not going to stop them. And Remus is their friend. No one else before or since in Remus's life has offered to do something like this for him. Do you think Remus will believe he's worthy of friendship yet? And Remus never gives his friends away. The fact that they would go through so much for him, he would never betray that. Not even as an adult, when he's working at the school and everyone thinks Sirius is trying to kill Harry Potter, he still doesn't give away Sirius Black's secret of being an animagi because he does not want to disappoint Dumbledore. This is a man who lives as an outcast in the wizarding world. The things his friends did for him in his youth and the things that Dumbledore did for him and still does for him, he is not going to let go of those or treat them badly easily. These four friends have a very close relationship and they become known as the Marauders. This is the happiest time in Remus's life. Okay, fast forward to life just out of Hogwarts. The war is on. Voldemort, he who must not be named. It is wartime in the wizarding world. Sirius suspects Remus of being a spy for Lord Voldemort. This puts a strain on their friendship, and when the whole secret-keeping plan is changed from being Sirius to being Peter, they don't tell Remus. Remus goes the next 12 years thinking that not one but two of his friends are dead, and the third one is a convicted criminal. And now, so soon after graduating from Hogwarts, from that happiest time in his life, he is once again alone and friendless. And during the time after all of his friends are gone, Voldemort is also gone, but he still can't really make a way in the world for himself when it's so racist and prejudiced against him. Fast forward again to when we actually meet him in Book 3. When Remus first meets Harry, it's on the train to Hogwarts, and there's Dementors. I imagine that Remus is not surprised that Harry is more affected by the Dementors than the other students, and I'm sure it makes him so sad. The son of his old friend is so affected by the Dementors that he faints and no one else does. But I also think it must warm Remus's heart to see that Harry already has such good friends around him. He knows how important it was for himself to have those good friends in school. And I love the lesson with the Boggart because it's so revealing for so many characters. We get to see what their biggest fear is. For Remus Lupin, the biggest fear that we see is not that surprising. The Boggart, when it sees him, transforms into the full moon. This represents the thing about himself that he cannot change or stop or fight. It's the thing about himself that is always inevitable. Becoming a werewolf is like being chased by a monster, except when a monster chases you, there's the possibility of escape or hiding. But he has to live knowing that the monster is within him, and it will always catch up with him. It will always find him, and it will always take over his body and his mind. And there is nothing he can do to escape it. So it's no real surprise that that full moon is his biggest fear. And the Wolfsbane potion is just a temporary relief while he works at Hogwarts. It's kind of expensive and complicated, and he can't get his hands on it all the time. And even so, even during this time at Hogwarts when he has access to it thanks to Professor Snape, it doesn't stop the change from happening. He still turns into the werewolf. He can't get away from it. I started to notice as I was reading these books that Remus Lupin never raises his voice. He is always calm and gentle and kind, no matter who he's talking to. Teachers that he might not like, students who he's chastising and getting in trouble, he still is calm and kind with them, especially with the students who really need it the most. And I think that the reason Remus interacts with people like this is because of that self-image he has, where he knows that he is a monster, and so he tries his very best in his life to not act like one. He wasn't born a werewolf, he became one, and he is going to treat others as good as he can because he needs to know that inside he is actually good. Now, something you might notice is that teachers generally tend to be on a first-name basis with each other. Remus Lupin always calls Professor Snape Severus. And I think this is just one little way to show Severus Snape that Remus is willing to put the past behind them and let bygones be bygones. We're adults now. We don't have to treat each other the way we did when we were younger. Professor Snape always says Lupin or Professor Lupin. It's such a small detail, but I think it's so poignant in the way that they view each other. Lupin has grown up. He wants to be good. Snape wants to hang on to the past and all the feelings from the past, and he does not want to forgive Remus. Even though Remus was not the mean one, Remus did sit back and allow his friends to be bullies and didn't stop them. And another thing that Remus sees about Snape now that they're adults is during that Boggart lesson, he sees that Professor Snape is one of the students' biggest fears. A teacher should never be the biggest fear that a student has in their life, and I think that probably makes Remus very disappointed in Snape. As Remus's year of teaching at Hogwarts comes to an end, he has been able to form a pretty good friendship with Harry. He's also discovered that Sirius, his old friend, is not a criminal or a betrayer, and they can reform their friendship a little bit. Also, unsurprisingly, Professor Snape has snitched on him, and now the entire wizarding world knows what he is. He's going to have a much harder time in his life now because of that. Not like it wasn't hard enough for him to find a job before. In book 5, Remus is able to have a better friendship with Sirius due to being in the Order of the Phoenix together. They're able to work together and see each other more, and I think it's so wonderful for Remus that he has a friendship back in his life. And I don't think enough time was spent on Remus's character when Sirius dies. All the focus is on Harry and how devastating this was for Harry, which, yes, it was. Harry, the orphan, had a man in his life who was like an extra father to him. But what about Remus? Harry has only known Sirius for a couple of years. Their relationship has been short. Yeah, Sirius was his godfather when he was a baby, but Harry didn't know him. For Harry, it was a short time that he was with Sirius. Remus has known Sirius for more like 20 years. Sirius made a huge change in Remus and his life and how Remus was able to view himself. In a world filled with prejudice and hate towards werewolves, the friends that Remus does have are like treasure to him. And now Sirius is lost treasure. Enter Tonks. Nymphadora Tonks. Don't call me Nymphadora. My name is Tonks. Remus is a guy who couldn't even accept friendship, let alone the idea that someone might be interested in romantic love for him. And we see him go through the same old struggle of feeling like he is not worthy. If he's not worthy of friendship, of course he's not worthy of love. And he gives her the excuses of, I'm bad for you. Don't you know I'm a monster? I'm too old for you. I have nothing to offer you. But this is no Twilight-style teenage werewolf love triangle thing going on. Tonks is a grown woman. She is a capable and talented witch. She knows what she wants, and she knows who she wants. And again, I know these books are called the Harry Potter books and Harry Potter is the main character, but I still feel like not enough time is spent on Remus Lupin. This relationship with Tonks is huge for him. He has such a hard time accepting that someone might love the monster that he is. It's kind of like a Beauty and the Beast situation going on here. So Remus is able to come around and accept that Tonks can love him, and they get married, and then she gets pregnant. And this just sets him off again. He panics. He has his first real big fight with Harry. They yell at each other. Remus is the guy who never raises his voice and yells, but he doesn't know what to do. He's going to have a child. What if his child is like him? What if his child has to grow up the way he did? Or if his child is not a werewolf, how could he stand having a father who is? But Harry really gets onto him and kind of puts him in his place and says, how dare you even consider not being there for your child? But having Harry yell at him like that and tell him what's up is what he needed. He needed to be told, yes, you are worth this family that you have. They need you. You are good for them. And Harry and Remus make up, and Harry does become the godfather for Teddy. Earlier in this video, I said that Remus's happiest time in his life was his time at school. And I stand by that, because even though he's married and has a child, he doesn't have the freedom to be happy with them like he otherwise would. This is a time of war. His time at school was really only troubled by being a werewolf, plus maybe normal school stuff. His time with his wife and child is constantly overshadowed by the war and all the dark things that are happening. Obviously, he feels like he has to constantly be worried about them, and this bond that he has, the bond of a husband with his wife and a father to his son, are so much stronger and deeper than anything he's had in his life before. That means that his fear of losing these is bigger than anything he's had in his life before. So in a time in Remus's life when he should have been happy, unfortunately, he does not get a happy ending. There is no happy ending for Remus Lupin. He and his wife Tonks die in the Battle of Hogwarts. And yes, they die fighting against evil, and in the place that Remus was always so happy. But how I wish these two characters could have had a happy ending. I'm more upset about this than about Fred's death in the Battle of Hogwarts. Maybe it's because I'm a mom and they left behind a child. I don't know. But I think they deserved to be happy, and sad ending. This is the end of my Remus video. So that's the end. The end. Sad. Tragedy. I hate it. But I think we can learn a lot from Remus Lupin and from his life throughout these books. If you liked this content, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and drop me a comment on who you think is an underrated character in their universe. I would love to hear what you think. See you next time. Bye!